Hello and welcome once again. It's Sunday and we have another special guest on the Houghton and Mackay show. This week we have Esther, who is an artist from the UK, started her journey in 2022. Her focus is to do with the angularity of art and how the relationship between the shapes are relating to the human nature and the self. Her focus, or one of them, is to do with philosophy, and we're going to meet her now to talk about all of these different angles indeed. So welcome to the show, Esther. Let's get you on the camera here.
Hello there,
Very
welcome.
welcome
Thank you for
indeed.
having
It's
me.
great to have you on the show. And we're going to talk about all of these different things. We have a little video as well, which you've kindly made. Thank you for that. And the audience can comment as we go through the discussion. So, angularity, that's the main thing, or the word that I would say is related to what I'm seeing on your art. How would you describe it yourself?
Oh, interesting question. So, I guess, well, if I tell you about the way I started, so I was kind of really drawn to abstract art, and then I realised very quickly that it was difficult to do. So, I started with like figurative drawing and pop art styles,
Pop art.
and pop art, yeah. And I really liked, the use of sort of bold lines and, kind of deciding how to draw lines and line art in general. So, that was kind of where it started. And then I was going into abstract, and it was a big mishmash of colours, contrasts, different mediums, materials. And I love the kind of interplay of colours and shapes, textures. But then I always felt drawn towards lines and particularly triangles as well. It wasn't because I
Right.
knew anything philosophically or had any sort of spiritual awareness of these shapes. It was just I thought that would sit quite nicely there. And then it was through that I went through a learning journey, and then I understood more about the, geometricity and what different shapes represent, and the symbolic meanings, particularly in kind of Eastern ancient philosophy, even religious context.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, this is such a big, intriguing subject. But now I just feel that I have to integrate it into my art. So I create the base, and then I sort of intersect things with lines which have general meanings for me in general.
No, it's a brilliant aspect. I mean, we've all been to galleries and we've all tried to understand what we're looking at there. And the journey of that understanding is the addiction. I think you started there by saying that there's a chaos and a mishmash. Um, and And the audience probably recognizes by now that when I start grinning or smiling, it means I've realized something in relation to what I said. That is life itself, chaos and a mishmash. If if somehow we can get that down on paper or in art and understand it, here is what we're trying to do. Almost, hey, I guess, same thing in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, and for me, it's like I can create this big free painting that I can use lots of shapes. I mean, sort of swirls and colours, and you know, blending and all kinds of activities. And I've got this hot mess, and then I look at it and I think I just need to dissect this with some sort of line to create balance and order. And then once I sort of go into the meaning of the shapes, it kind of gives meaning to me, and then it puts me on a direction. And I feel like I can have my expression with the art, but then also the kind of the balance and order of creating lines to, for my own kind of self mission, I guess you could call it.
It's great. It really is. I've tried art before. I'm not very good at it, meaning I can't find a way to use art to reach myself. Um, so it's just drawing on paper for me, hardly any meaning. It's great that you've found that within your journey, um, writing or whatever it is. It's always human. Shall we have a look at your video and
Yes.
give some context to this very nice video indeed? You recorded this a couple of weeks ago, um, with a camera at your home, and you displayed a section of art there. Very nice video indeed. Let's go over to that and have a look, and we'll have a look back to the a minute. So you're watching, enjoy this video, and we'll see you in a moment.
Hi there, so welcome to some of my artworks. I have them outside here, as you can see. All right, so what is all this about? So I kind of have a bit of a philosophy that I like to create a bit of a hot mess underneath as the base for my paintings. So you can see here, I kind of use a lot of different techniques with sponges, wipers, Brillo pads, things like that, to create a kind of base effect, a bit chaotic. And then I use kind of stable structures, like squares and lines, to kind of create order. And in the middle, we have the triangle here. So a triangle is generally the focal point of my artwork. And that's because I love them. They are the most stable structure in architecture and engineering. And if you think about roofs, bridges, houses, churches, most of them have some sort of triangle structure. So there's a lot of strength there. So they have a particular meaning for me because in the hot mess of the artwork, which you can see here, it's kind of a lot of different structures and shades and stuff. I sort of intersect it with the triangle to create balance and order. Equally, if you have a look at this blue one here as well, again, it's a sequence of different lines, and the base is made up of stenciling and spray paints, and I just use different lines to intersect each other to create effect. So that's basically it. I like to create a hot mess and then intersect it with stable lines to create order. Thank you for listening.
That was very interesting indeed. And the one that there was a couple of things there that stood out for me. I could see, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I could see different moods in the selection, the array of the artwork. For example, the grey, probably a negative mood. Blue is, tell me if I'm wrong, is the blue to do with a melancholic mood? Lots of straight lines, thoughts.
To be honest, I think that's the beauty of abstract. It means different things to different people. I've actually shown that to a few friends, and one of my friends says it reminds me of going to the beach, which is usually quite a positive thing.
Yes.
But equally, it's blue is a melancholic color. There's lots of different meaning behind blue. If we look at branding and how companies use blue, there's actually like a lot of deep underwork into those choices. But for me, it was about an interplay of lines. So I love the lines. I thought, how can I just make something look, a mishmash of lines, but in a kind of, hopefully in a bit of a balanced way, but, with different sort of patterns and structures. And that was really the intention. But if it comes across as melancholic, then that's equally a great thing because it makes people think.
Does. And as you say, there's no right answer. What another thing that I was thinking about when looking at the video is, could it relate a little bit to feng shui? What I mean by that is when you're doing a piece of art, the shapes say, right, I have a triangle here. Where do I put it? Where is the place that feels correct and lends itself well to the square next to it and the circle at the bottom, and so on and so on? Is that the approach? Is that a good way of looking at it? Depends on how we feel, doesn't it?
How we feel, it's more intuitive actually. So sometimes sometimes I can start with a canvas, and probably a lot of artists relate to the same thing. And you're going through a whole multitude of different layers, and with an intention of doing something, it doesn't look quite right, and then you end up doing something completely different. So what you intended to do, you end up doing something completely the opposite, and it's kind of either a welcome surprise or a complete frustration. But I think it's with persistence. But one thing I've noticed is that the lines, triangles, and the geometric shapes always come through, even if I think, oh, let's try something else. And even to do a circle, that would be like a really big thing for me. But I know one day I need to, try other things as well. But I just get drawn into it. Just naturally, it comes to my mind.
Oh, it's good. It's a tessellation of thought. Okay.
Yeah, it's good. And there's another thing as well about it. So, we think about, the kind of the linear, the structure, the border, the hard lines. That's sometimes a bit reflective of my personality as well. Like, I can be quite serious. And sometimes, people say, oh, lighten up, it's not that serious or whatever. But it's like, but no, I just keep everything in a straight line. So there's also another side of me that I have to have an awareness of as well, to make sure I just don't look at everything so linear, and just to be a bit playful with it as well.
Linearity. Yeah.
Yes.
That could be the title of one of the arts, in fact. I don't know if you've titled them. Or is that drawing away from the interpretation aspect we said earlier?
Yeah, I do. To be honest with you, there's all these sort of little small rules. Sign your artwork. I don't do any of it just because I don't want to. My signature's so appalling. I don't want to mess up the painting. But I always think it's good for the viewer, for the interpretation, because if you give it a title or name, it's it can actually take away from seeing something else which maybe the painter has a different view on. So I always keep them untitled. But yeah, I think it's an individual choice.
That's probably one of the hardest things for anyone in the fields. It's the first impression that counts. They say that, and if you have hooked viewers, the readers, into something that they believe is true, that will contaminate everything afterwards. And if you get it wrong, it's very hard to get out of. It's like being typecast as an actor. An artist can have the same thing in a way, not through their whole career, but certainly through a presentation or a display. Depends, doesn't it? But
yeah, exactly. And it's equally, it's if you say to somebody, what does this make you feel? Do you have any feeling towards this structure or shape or sort of artistic vision? And even if the answer's like no, it doesn't stir any emotion, it doesn't make me think about anything. Equally, I find that quite interesting as well. And then it's like, what about the human condition as well? What does drive you? What does make you look? And that's why I think the importance of colour and striking, bold, expressive works can be, for some certain types of people, can be a bit more kind of engaging, where they're like, oh wow, actually, yeah, that really stands out to me. Whereas if you're just doing a set of lines, that person may think, yeah, it doesn't mean anything to me, but it could have a significant meaning to someone else.
And again, I mean, the lines could indicate order in the chaos. The overlapping of colours over the lines could be that non-conformist approach that people have to rules and so on. So many different things. The readers who listeners to the magazine may have heard of, let's ask whether this is relevant and same for art as well. The intentional fallacy, called. Do a bit of research if you haven't, everyone. It's where it discusses a writer's intention never fully be interpreted in those that are reading it. Never really know what the intention is. Story is part of the intention. The way we interpret it is going to be different from everyone. Everyone is different, rather. So how do we know what the actual intention was of the writer in us? What she wanted us to feel exactly? It's a massive long spectrum, to the point that we don't know where the writer's intention sits. It's within a range, obviously, but the question is, does the same apply to art? Does it apply to movies? Does it apply to singing? The whole lot. We know that people can interpret singing in a different way. They're doing George Michael's song in a different tone, or Freddie Mercury song, whatever the genre. And art's no different. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of it, because you might get someone who's close to your actual intended vision, but then they've got a slight twist or a slight nuance in that, how they interpret it. And then you're like, oh, wow, I never would have thought about that, or that you could actually see that, or that was even a thing. And then it makes you, it's like a wonderful journey of the human, actually. It's like, wow, yeah, my thought process wasn't as open as I thought it was. But now I've got this whole, kind of bunch of people that are giving me other narratives to my work, which I would never have imagined. And I think that's just a wonderful thing.
For me, art triggers so many different ideas that are often nothing to do with the art itself. For example, I'll be looking at a gallery, I'll be going to a piece, and anything that is on the art that triggers something that's not quite relevant, but do with something I wanted to do, or I'm planning to do, I'll be like, that reminds me of that job I need to do. Or that colour, yes, that's probably the right colour that I want for my home. So I will walk out of a gallery with so many different ideas, triggered by the art, and abstractly, that's what often happens. Don't know whether that's the same for everyone.
Oh, I absolutely resonate with that. He's more of a modern day philosopher. He's called Alan de Botton. If you don't know if you've heard of him,
yes,
he's written books, and on YouTube, and he's got a great approach to sort of helping you kind of cope with the day-to-day foibles of life. And he talks about art as well, and he says, it helps us process feelings, it helps us feel less lonely, it can help us with ideas, but also solutions to our problems. So just as you mentioned, something that was probably bothering you maybe weeks ago, you see a piece of art, and then suddenly it becomes apparent what you need to do. But you didn't intend to have that realization. I think that's amazing.
And there's where the immersion comes from, I think. Are immersed in art. They stand there, and if you're looking at a painting or any piece of art for more than X amount of time that is reasonable, so what would we suggest? The average person probably spends a couple of minutes. That's nice. I appreciate the design and so on. If they're there for 5-10 minutes, that means they're looking into it. Those thoughts are probably coming out. What an enriching experience to spend an afternoon at a gallery doing that. You come out with such an active mind, appreciating what the artist has done for you in that way. There's the intention. There it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm one of these people, if I'm feeling a bit sort of low or, stressed or ruminating with thoughts, I just take myself off to the Tates or other sort of small local exhibitions, and it's very calming, with a group of people that are there for the same kind of relaxation. It's never really stressful, and it's a really nice experience. So yeah, I think art has the power to bring so many kind of qualities to our life, not just the aesthetics of looking at it and the meaning interpretation, but it just, I think, can make us feel very calm and grounded.
It is. Okay, shall we round off there and say goodbye to the audience? It's been really good, a good deep discussion. Thank you so much for your time, Esther. There's lots more questions to be asked, but we can probably have another revisit in the of more pieces. Well, even more pieces. Just out of interest, how many have you got? There's absolutely loads on the wall there, showed in the video.
I've done about 32 pieces actually, in total, and I do take quite a lot of time on each one. I don't do everything in one stretch. I sort of come back and forth and need a bit of time away, then come back. But yeah, about 32 pieces. But yeah, it's good. It keeps me fired up. So
Super.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoy the discussion.
Yeah, thank you everyone as well for coming on the show. It's been a very good discussion, and as you know, what we're doing is we're inviting lots of different artists, people from the world of human, including arts, literature, even the media, movies, and so on. We want to have people across the spectrum, even people who have had very interesting and about their journey as well, because the magazine covers culture, lifestyle, and wealth. Again, if you haven't had a look, type in Houghton and Mackay over on Edge or Google, and take a look. Let me know if you want to be a guest on the show. We'll put some information on Esther's art in the comments. You can see and ask more questions about that. Thank you once again for tuning in. We'll let you know on the schedule over on the website who's coming up, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.